Today we are out at Olson's greenhouse. With me is Brian Lloyd, and we are excited to show you some fall containers, give you some ideas of how to put together some great fall containers. And Brian, let's talk about it. You always tell us about your thriller, filler, and spiller. So let's start with the thriller. What is the thriller in this container?
So the thriller here is this millet right here, and it's a type of sorghum, but it's got the great fall color in the foliage with that deep burgundy, but the bloom as well. And a thriller is just something that brings your attention in so you can look at the rest of the container. So usually it's bigger or unique in some way, and that's what we're getting out of millet here. But you can use any type of grass, like purple fountain grass we have right behind it, also gets the great fall foliage.
I love the millet because it's so different, and you're not used to seeing it.
Exactly, and we brought it in, we just started bringing it in, and people are really loving it for sure.
Okay, let's talk about the fillers now.
Yeah, fillers is just everything around that kind of gives bulk and size and shape to the container. And our traditional filler this time of year is a traditional garden mum. It usually gets mounded, and most fillers are mounding plants, but they can also trail a little bit. And for the most part, when we talk about annuals like trailing petunias and calibrachoa, those are things that mound and trail as well. So that takes us into the next type is spillers.
Which is your spiller, right.
And so we can use those mounding and trailing plants as spillers, but I always like to have something that softens the edge of the container, like this creeping jenny. It fills in a little bit, but then it trails over the edge, or this lemon coral sedum. These are both happen to be chartreuse green, but you could get trailers or spillers in a lot of different colors. But the point is to kind of go over the edge of the container and bring everything together so it doesn't look like an ice cream cone just sitting on top.
Right. Fall planters, you don't want to start with small plants. You want to make sure and fill your pot because it's not going to have time to fill in.
Yeah, we're not going to get a lot of growth here. You will get a little bit, but for the most part, you want to cram more plants in than less. But if you do happen to leave a bare spot, that's a great time. It's a great time of year to put a gourd in and fill in those bare spots as well. But for the most part, you want to overplant your fall containers.
We know that all of you love to decorate for Halloween, and this is a great way to decorate your porch for fall. And I love how we put out the pumpkins. You can use pumpkins, you can use gourds. Just kind of what do people want to think about is when they're putting together the whole thing, though?
Well, the best thing for fall planters is most of these are perennials or long-lived annuals. And so they'll do great for the entire fall season, but mums are a different story. Mums only bloom for 3 to 4 weeks in their prime. And so what you want to do, we have a mum here that's at the end of its bloom life. It's going to start turning brown a little bit on the bloom tips. And so what you want to do is I always leave it as a placeholder, and I'll bring in a fresh mum midway through the season. So I'll leave the pot actually in the soil and plant this whole thing in its pot. And if you come in close here, you can see.
Such a great trick, though, too.
Yeah, you can see I've left a little placeholder there, and the pot came out with it, but I've got the spot there for the mum. And now I can go get a similar size mum, or maybe even a little bit smaller, and I can take it out of its pot and put it into the one that I left there as a placeholder. Now I've got a mum that's just starting to open its buds that'll get me another 4 weeks of enjoyment to go along with the rest of the container, clear past Halloween at this point.
And really the great thing too is that if they have a container that they've already had for the season, they can keep some of their other items and fill in with some of the beautiful fall plants.
Exactly, yep. If you've got something that's still thriving, like I just saw a Facebook post by a user, a Facebook person that said they kept all of their sweet potato vine, the purple sweet potato vine, because it's such a great fall color and it's still thriving from summer. So they tore out the rest of the plants from their summer container and just added in some fall plants around it.
So anything else we need to think about as far as watering is concerned? Are these all planted in the soil in the pot, or are they in containers?
These are all planted into soil, and the more volume you have, the less frequency of watering you need, because that soil volume will hold a lot of water. And in the fall in general, because of our cool nights, we don't need to water as often as we did when it was 90 degrees or 100 degrees in the summer and warm at night as well. But the main thing we watch for in the fall is actually overwatering, even in containers. But you still got to watch it. You don't want it to dry out. And so you still got to water frequently, whether it's in its own pot like this mum was, or the roots are kind of spreading out through the soil. They still have to get access to water. When you do keep them in their own pot, you got to pay attention that that's in a little bit of a different microclimate than the rest of the container. And so you don't want to just water over here and think that that mum is going to grab up the water.
Right.
So you want to make sure you spread your watering all the way around the container on the edge. If you have a dripper on the pot, which I always recommend, maybe have a couple drippers for the rest of the container and then one specifically for the individual mum pot that we put in.
Any more tips for us, Brian?
No, I think just enjoy it, and don't be scared if something does not look great to either deadhead it or take off dead leaves or rip the entire plant out together and replace it with something else off the shelf that you bought. You can always kind of mix and match, even though the whole container is looking good, if one thing starts to look bad after a few weeks.
The idea is just enjoy your gardening and join us for the Greenhouse Show for more tips. KSL Greenhouse, Saturday mornings 8 to 11. You can also find us on the KSL News Radio app.